When the economy tanks, the knives usually come out. GDP just shrank by almost a full percent, unemployment starting to wobble, and the Reserve Bank is swinging the axe at the cash rate. In sport, when the team keeps losing, the coach doesn't survive long. And in politics, when the scoreboard looks ugly, the captain suddenly finds his own teammates sharpening the blades behind the sheds. Right now, there's open talk of a coalition coup to roll Prime Minister Christopher Luxon. And sitting here is a man who knows exactly how the story ends. He was in the room when Jim Bolger was cleared out and Jenny Shipley took the reins. He's next.
Financial freedom faster. Financial freedom faster.
Now, if you actually want to make money instead of sitting on the couch sulking, watching the neighbour's place double in value while you refresh Trade Me, hit the subscribe button. Because in 2025, more Kiwis are getting their property brains from this show than anywhere else. Be the one who sets the pace before your mates cotton on. Maurice, are you feeling deja vu from 25, 26, 27 years ago?
No, it's different. And I guess it always is different. There will be factors that have not been seen before and characters who play the game differently. What I just don't get is how you can win an election so well 2 years ago, come in on this banner of I'm going to provide phenomenal change and do wonderful things, and everyone's going, this is fantastic, finally. And 2 years later, almost hard to see a single run on at least the short-term board. I'm happy to go over to the long-term board and say, I think stuff in education is going to deliver some good outcomes. I think stuff on some of the big infrastructure investment stuff, the fast tracking, we'll see some economy turnaround. But you've got to have those runs appearing on the board before October next year. And I can't see any runs on the board.
Well, we have seen it, obviously, in Australia. They've tipped over so many prime ministers. Kevin Rudd's the best example of that, where he came in on a landslide and Julia Gillard got rid of him, and then he came back. But
Kevin in 07.
But the Bolger one was interesting because I'm going to put it to you that history hasn't treated him well because he wasn't the charismatic prime minister that, say, Longy was or Muldoon, but he was the most fabulous prime minister in an MMP period. He won elections that he should not have won. He made deals with Winston after he'd thrown Winston out. He was a fabulous prime minister, and yet he was turfed before that 99 election. Now, you've got a situation here. We've got a prime minister who, I'm sorry, isn't a fabulous prime minister. He's goddamn average. Yeah. And yet National kicked out a fantastic prime minister, and this time they're keeping this guy. What on earth is going on?
There gets to be, well, first of all, you need to understand that the world has changed from back there in terms of politics. And now with a three-party coalition, it's a lot more difficult. We only had the two-party with Winston at that time.
Yes, but Winston was Bolger's mate. As soon as Shipley came in, Winston was off, they lost the election. You lost the election.
We lost.
You lost the election.
And we couldn't stop it. It was just turning
right,
bad.
So that was a dumb decision.
Well, it was mainly driven out of Jenny Shipley, who was keen to be recognised as the first ever woman Prime Minister of New Zealand. And no one had ever done it. She wanted to be the person who got the kudos. She hasn't really got much kudos out of that. And in fact, every time I hear it say, well, she wasn't the first elected Prime Minister, so it doesn't count. So being elected Prime Minister is what really matters. I think there's another thing that's at play here. A whole lot of where I think National's talent lies is still quite young people. And what they won't want to do is completely bastardise their political career and then be gone to the wilderness forever. And one of the things you can always think about is, well, we'll have to take the hit before we can rebuild. And so they'll go into the next election probably knowing that they're likely to take a hit, maybe gone, maybe in a more robust coalition with the other parties getting more of their vote. And they'll then do a rebuild from that point. I think there were very few people want to take over the role of captain of the Titanic after the ship has hit the iceberg.
Yeah, but okay, look at Thatcher. She got turfed out, and I think Heseltine was probably the guy that was going to get the gig. Yeah. But in the end, it was John Major, who is a pretty dry guy, but he won the fourth election for the Tories.
Yes, he did. Yes, he did.
So
yes,
it's there for someone if they have it, because Major certainly wasn't the guy when they turfed out Thatcher.
No, and in fact, everyone couldn't believe it. I had lunch with John Major here at the Northern Club once, and Bolger was at the lunch. There was about 6 ministers. I was one of them. And he was going on about his back to basics morality and all of that decent stuff and how he needed to have more of it. And he couldn't stand some of his ministers that had been playing up and they were all being sacked left, right and centre. I just wished I had known at the time that he was having it off with Edwina Curry, because I would have thrown a comment like, aren't you supposed to have your curry before the dessert rather than a...
I don't think anyone's in New Zealand's going to know that, but I lived in England at the time when that came out, so I know exactly I know exactly
what a hypocrite.
Yeah.
Back to basics morality, and he's having it off with his education secretary.
I, William Jefferson Clinton, do solemnly swear.
Look at the most effective politician of the 20th century. Not necessarily the greatest president, but certainly the best politician of the 20th century was Bill Clinton.
Yes.
Okay? I'll argue it till the cows come home. He was a flawed...
runs on the board.
But he was a flawed governor. He got voted out of Arkansas, came back, and no one wanted to go against George Bush in 1992, so he ran. The economy's stupid, as we've said in previous podcasts, and he won.
Yeah.
This election is about change. Change in our party, change in our leadership, change in our nation.
He would have got a third term if it had been allowed, because he was putting runs on the board. So if you look what he did in education, if you look at the Camp David Accord, if you look at balancing the books, if you look at the reducing of the deficit and the
longest period of economic stability in America's history, they had to turn off the clock. Where is the balls in our politicians like Bill Clinton, who is fatally flawed? He was fatally flawed, and he still was able to do it.
What I loved about the Clinton regime is that if you were hiring him as a morals campaigner, you wouldn't have even put him on your shortlist. But people said, I don't actually care about that stuff. I care about the things that affect me in my daily life, whether I've got a job, whether my kids are getting proper medical care, with the education system delivering stuff and so on. He basically went into every one of those areas that matter. When you wake up in the morning and you put your feet on the floor beside the bed, they are in your head, you're worried about this. And what he was doing in his private life, he had to square away with his missus, and that would have been a dreadful conversation he had to have. But most American voters said, I don't mind. I don't like it. I don't. So Clinton was a phenomenally successful president, would have got a third term in all the polling that was going on, which is very unusual. But he couldn't, because the system doesn't allow it.
Look, I'm going to go further again. You've said to me that politicians don't make any decisions without looking at the polls, correct?
Correct.
Right. One of the reasons why Clinton was so successful, apart from all that, is that we could identify with his flaws in the sense that he wasn't perfect.
Yep.
Because I say this to people all the time. There's only 3 people that I can remember who were perfect. They were Jesus Christ, who got nailed to a cross.
Right.
Got Tiger Woods, but in actual fact, he lived a double life. He was a perfect golfer. And there was Lance Armstrong.
Oh, shit, I thought it was going to be me, the third one. Bugger.
But they were,
No,
you see what I mean? You see where everyone identifies with flawed people.
Yeah.
The National Party in their front bench, they're just not relatable enough.
No, well, they're not. See, you have to be able to link outcomes to your actions, and the public will love you for it if they see things happening that they know you changed and the outcomes are happening.
So look at Wayne Brown. Okay, when he came in, and the Herald fucking hated him.
Yes.
Really hated him.
Seriously hated him.
And you're saying to me that he's going to be in by 100,000 votes.
Oh, easily.
Because he's relatable.
Yeah.
He says F and this and all that kind of stuff. And he gets,
Yeah.
we can relate to him.
Yeah, and he says...
Isn't this the secret to politicians?
To an extent, I think you have to have the substance with it. Longy in his second term was terribly relatable and very funny and was delivering nothing.
Yeah.
Long in his first term was still very relatable, very funny, unbelievably hilarious with an audience, and they loved him. But he was delivering in that first term, really delivering economically.
He made us proud to be New Zealanders with the Rainbow Warrior in the Oxford.
Would like an answer, sir.
And I'm going to give it to you if you hold your breath just for a moment. I can smell the uranium on it as you lean towards it.
Well, how about me? I was a first-time National Party candidate in 1987, and I was a floating voter, because I loved what they would do. I loved what Roger Douglas was doing. I actually said so. In fact, in the Howard Pakuranga Times, there's an article from 1987 which I penned, because people were saying to me at the door, well, I like Labour. And I said, Labour or Roger Douglas? Well, Roger Douglas. Same thing. I said, no, it's not the same thing. He is doing his own thing and doing wonderful things. So I wrote a big article which says if you want Rogernomics to continue after the 1987 election, you're going to have to vote National, because all of their new backbenchers that were coming in, they came from all over. You know, there was people like Liz Tennant from Island Bay, and Larry Sutherland from the Forestry Workers Union, and there was a whole swag of them that came in that were hardline trade unionist lefties and hated their own finance minister enough. I made the comment in the Herald, I don't reckon Roger Douglas will survive. I wasn't actually sure that was true, but I said it. Well, he didn't last diddly squat before they belted him out, because they'd lost the plot on deliverables. So now that's a fantastic example. The same leader and the same party, one term delivering outcomes and put back with an increased majority.
Yes,
Doug Graham lost Remuera on the night and got it back under special.
Unbelievable.
We lost
Unbelievable.
We lost Jim Maclay's Birkenhead.
Yeah.
We lost New Plymouth. We lost a whole lot of blue ribbon seats to the first term government. You normally should be able to start making your way back into office after you've done a term in the wilderness. They were just literally, and I door knocked this electorate big time, and the number of people at the door who said, well, I just like what they're doing, and you guys and Muldoon just wrecked the place and so on.
Okay, let's get back to...
So that's important to get that.
Let's get back to, I look at that National front bench, look at what we got with Luxon. They're down in the polls. If they don't do something, they're out, right? They've got to do something.
There's one saving grace that I think they're all relying on, and that is the other side is so ghastly that you can't become... Well, no, you think about it. Labour cannot become the government by itself.
Okay, I'm going to say
It's
something
got to
ridiculous.
team up with a lunatic group.
What about making Winston the Prime Minister in the next election? It's a ridiculous thing to say, but it's the only way the National's going to stay there.
No, I don't think you could ever have stability where the major party... And the thing that could happen is that both New Zealand First and ACT come up and National come down, and you then won't have one big tower with a couple of little supporters. You'll have two or three big close to each other towers. Now you get some real debate internally about why are we not getting more say on this? Why have I not got more ministers doing that?
But if you've got ineffective Luxon and Winston's popular, and he is popular, he's a centrist, he's
Very
popular,
popular.
right?
Very popular.
National comes down and Winston's sitting there like he has the last 30 years and said, I can be the kingmaker. Why wouldn't he say, make me Prime Minister? And why wouldn't they do it? Because the alternative is letting Labour back in.
Well, I'm going to say to you again, I don't think that is necessarily the alternative, because no matter how big a vote Labour can get, it's then got to say, but I need to partner up with the Greens, who are mad as a hatter.
Yeah.
But they probably could still do it with some of them. They don't have some of the Rod Donalds and the other sort of sensible Greens that had been. They're pretty much gone. They're pretty much gone. But then that's still not going to be enough based on any of the polling. You're still going to need two-party Maori. Now, they are literally insane. They are...
Figuratively.
Well, they're saying things.
Figuratively.
They're saying things that even internally they say they shouldn't have said it, and we're going to rein them in, but then they don't, and so on. And the public who think that they would want to have an alternative parliament above the ordinary one, controlled by Māori, that could determine whether they veto normal legislation of the elected. It is bordering on laughable. If you did a Monty Python sketch about it, you'd say, that's pretty funny, actually. So that's why I don't. And when you get to the ballot paper next time, I think they'll phrase it like that. You either want this lot to govern or this lot, and rather than it'll be the six parties all doing their own bit, because
What can we learn from the coup of '98?
That instability causes you a lot of harm. The idea, like calling an early election like Muldoon did in '84. That the public do not like that. They see that you're doing it for your own, I get in early and I can get better outcomes rather than waiting my time and running the campaign. As it was, the economy was so badly broken. He said it would have been better if he didn't do it after a night on the tiles, but because we always called it the Schnaps election rather than the Snap election. But look, I just hope that Luxon sits down and says, right, I want you all in here. I want you all in here now. We're going to do a complete reshuffle of the portfolios. I'm going to put a whole lot of people out to pastures. I'm going to bring some newbies in. We're going to make a big change because we've got no alternative but staying on the track we are is taking us down into the valley of death. But that instability also means people say, oh, they've sort of broken. And of course, there'll be then white anting. Somebody loses their job. They don't like it. That Fred got it.
But
Right.
they've shown themselves. He's been there 2 years. He's not going to improve. We know who he is. He's not going to suddenly become that hard-ass, charismatic guy that's electable.
No, he's not.
So I think you're talking rubbish. You know, that's not going to get them through.
Yes, but again, I've said it before. If you're a young politician with a long career ahead of you, do you want to step out of line? Because I did. I can tell you I stepped out in 2002.
But that's what Bill Clinton did. He put his neck on the line and he became president. That's
Well,
what I'm saying. That's right there for
it's hard
someone.
to convince people. You take on the leadership. You don't get your team across the line. You're gone. You're gone. You only came in by bowling the current leader. So
One of the most effective prime ministers we've ever had, a friend of yours who you rate very highly, lost an election and came back and won.
Yes.
Helen Clark.
Yes, I know.
So
Yes,
why?
she was polling. Johnny Banks used to call out to her in the Parliament, "What are you up to today, Mrs. 2%?"
Yes,
she was polling
she's
2%.
by your own
And she
admission,
came
she's
back.
one of the best prime ministers
Without
we've
doubt.
ever had.
Without doubt.
But she's lost 2 elections,
Yeah.
but she lost one first.
Well, she was always going to lose after the third term. You
Yeah,
can't stay-
forget that. But what I'm saying,
That's-
she lost the election and came back and won.
Correct.
Why can't some of these national guys who are supposed to, because Helen Clark was a star. If you're a star in the making, why can't you take inspiration from Helen Clark?
She was a star in a very unusual way. She wasn't charismatic like Longy.
No, but none of
She
our
had sense-
prime ministers who are charismatic are any good. Just in that, no good.
I don't agree with that.
Longy, no good. Muldoon, no good.
I don't agree with that. I think Longy had incredible charisma.
For the first term,
the first
and
term.
then he lost it.
And then he had a backbench that was in revolt, so he had to try and do something.
We don't do good charismatic prime ministers. We do boring people
Middle of the
that
road.
bulge.
Middle of the road.
That's right.
Yeah. But what we will tolerate is if they're middle of the road, but they're delivering outcomes.
Correct.
Because I don't really need some flashy comedian who's good with one-liners if I'm in the bloody poorhouse with my house being in a mortgage sale and I got no money in the bank. I'd much rather I had a very bland, ordinary bloke and the economy was booming, inflation was directly under control, interest rates were low, our GDP was growing, our GDP per capita, which is really bad. No one mentions we went down 1.1 in the per capita stuff. That is frightening. That is frightening because we're losing so many people out of the country heading off to Australia. If you're producing this much economy and it's with a lot less people, your GDP per capita should have been going up. And to go down more is just quite panicking.
Why did you never stand for prime minister?
Oh, absolutely. Never wanted to make the commitment of the hours. My wife, 3
But
kids.
you'd be working 110 hours a week anyhow, wouldn't you?
No, they literally get no life. A prime minister gets no life.
And a cabinet minister does?
Gets a part of a life, a bit of a life. I mean, I was able to take a week off during the school holidays and head to Pawanui. So Luxon doesn't have that luxury. There's just always meetings. There's always workload. There's always
Okay,
papers.
so I'm going to put it to you.
Right.
I think he's boring. I know he's your mate, Simeon Brown. He's boring, but he's effective.
He's terribly effective.
He's got a young family, so he's out. He wouldn't be prime
No, his
minister.
family will be young for only a short period of time. And once you've got your kids off in school and so on, I think you should either do it one way or the other. Should be the PM and then have a family, or have a family get them through to maybe sort of college, and then you can do what you like. And there's been good examples of either way.
Yeah.
But the call, I don't know how Simeon survives. He's got 4 little wee kiddies. He is working like so many hours a day. He's been given the graveyard portfolio where you cannot be successful.
That's right.
And yet he's still churning out, really good tasks, really good targets, really good measures to start holding some people's feet to the fire about delivering.
Yes or no, is Luxon going to be the prime minister going into the election next year?
Yes. I think yes for the wrong reasons, and that is no one's going to be prepared to have a tack at it.
Is yes or no, is National going to win the election next year with Luxon as prime minister?
Yes, but it'll be so hard to configure a government because the numbers will be so close to each other. He'll probably have to give away his soul at the company store to try to get that numbers where you've got a very fragile. It's not a matter of just winning. It's a matter of not having such a fragile majority. It can all come down, crashing down around you 3 months into the new government. And that's That's instability on steroids.
Is you saying yes, they're going to win the election next year with Luxon? Are your
I
heart
think-
saying it or your head?
I think Lux. No, well,
It's your heart saying it, I think.
no. I'll tell you this. I don't think the other side, with having to rely on the lunatics and the nut jobs, will ever become the government. So now it's this side of the bench's will. And I don't think there's anyone that's prepared to take him on, bowl him, and create the instability to try and have you've got a short runway to do it in. They might just get to the point saying it's too late for anything. But I think Luxon has got to learn to lift his game, and if he doesn't, and you're right, a lot of it's baked in now. He's like he is. I think I'll make you a prediction of a centre-right coalition by 3 to 4 seats.
We'll hold you to it. Maurice Williamson.
can.
Maurice Williamson, thank you very, very much for your time.
Pleasure.